Hey everybody, you left off with Adam reading the beginning of chapter 5. So I'm going to pick up where he left off with Willie's getting restless and Humphrey was skittering across the floor. I hear him, said Brenda. Shh, said Willie. I waited a few more seconds and then I scrambled out of the corner and grabbed the closest seat. I could hear the gasps from the children, but I pretended not to notice. I scurried toward the second seed. This plan Mr. Morales and I came up with was tasty, tasty, tasty. I could almost feel 3 pairs of eyes fixed on me, but I ignored them. I grabbed up the third and fourth seeds, hid them in my cheek pouch, and then stopped right outside the door of my cage. Inside, Mr. Morales had left a lovely pile of sunflower seeds. It was nice to be free, but my cage was home after all. Besides, until the day somebody fixes the lock that doesn't lock, I can get out whenever I want. The kids were still quiet, so I made a run for the cage. Mr. Morales quickly closed the door, and the children began to cheer. We did it, said Brenda. Dad's the smartest man in the world, said Willie. Hey, you kids helped. When we cooperate and work together, we make a pretty good team, Mr. Morales told them. Lo mejora, Willie agreed. The best. Mr. Morales squatted down and winked at me. Of course, Humphrey helped too. I'll say. The rest of the weekend with the Morales family was fine. Sometimes the kids started interrupting their dad or mom, but Mr. Morales just reminded them that they could be polite if they tried. Willie and Brenda tried. Mrs. Morales sold a house. It turns out that selling other people's houses is her job. So they celebrated with pizza and ice cream. Brenda learned to hold me gently. Willie even cleaned the poo out of my cage, which I appreciated. Life is good, I thought as Mr. Morales drove me back to school Monday morning. Then I remembered Miss Brisbane and how she'd said I was a troublemaker and she was going to get rid of me. Humphrey, you're a true friend, said Mr. Morales as he carried my cage back to room 26. I'll never forget what you did for me. As soon as class started on Monday, Heidi's mom came into the classroom and explained to everyone about taking me home on the weekends. How many of you would be interested? Miss Hopper asked. Every single hand in the room was raised. Every hand except one, Miss Brisbane's. Still, it was a pretty good week. I got a 90% on my vocabulary test. I'll bet Saya got 100%. But she still didn't raise her hand, even though she had promised. And Aldo talked to me more and more every night. On Tuesday night, he leaned in close and asked, Humphrey, do you ever wish you had a girlfriend? Like most hamsters, I'm pretty much of a loner, so I hadn't really thought about it before. Not sure, I squeaked. I would like one, said Aldo. A really nice girlfriend. I felt so sorry for Aldo. I squeaked extra loud when he performed his broom balancing act for me. I was still thinking about him on Wednesday. After everyone had left, while there was still light coming in the window, I meandered outside the cage to help myself to any mealworms that Heidi might have left behind when she fed me earlier in the day. The table was covered with newspapers, and while I nibbled, I browsed the news. All of life was there on the pages of the news. Births, deaths, lost pets. Sad, sad, sad. Funny jokes. Good news and bad news. Then there were ads. My, there were so many stores, not just Petorama, but Shoesorama and Foodorama and Books Galore and Wide World of Tools. And there were ads too, other ads too. One in particular caught my eye that afternoon. It read, Work nights? Lonely? Want to meet others who work nights? The Moonlighters Club, for people who work at night. The meetings are held during the day on weekends. On weekdays. Hikes and outings to restaurants, parks, plays, movies, and much more. There was a name and a phone number at the end. I could hardly believe it. This was exactly what Aldo needed. I could already see him smiling and happy, going to parks and plays with the Moonlighters Club and having a girlfriend. But how could I get Aldo to read this ad? He'd probably just throw it away. Still, if I cut it out and left it in a place where he couldn't miss it, Well, maybe. Hamsters can't do scissors, but we have nifty teeth. It took me a while to nibble the whole ad out neatly, but I did a pretty good job. And then I stood the clipping up against my cage. Aldo couldn't help but see it if he looked at me, which he always did. That evening I was more anxious than usual for Aldo to arrive. When he turned on the lights, I squeaked, "Hello!" right away. "Greetings to you, my little friend," said Aldo as he pushed his cart into the room. "You sound like you have something on your mind." "You bet," I tried to tell him. He ambled over to my cage and leaned down and looked in. "What's happening, Humphrey?" he asked, and I saw his light on the scrap of newspaper. His eyes light on the scrap of newspaper. "Hey, I can hardly see you," and he reached out and pushed the clipping aside. "Read it!" I squeaked. Of course he didn't understand. He didn't even look at what the ad said. He just set it down next to the cage and leaned in closer. I was squeaking a blue streak. "Look at it now!" "Calm down, Humphrey. I've got a treat for you," said Aldo, and he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a tiny bit of a carrot. "Your pal Aldo would never forget you." My heart sank. You try to help a human and they don't even pay attention. But as you know, I don't give up easily. I squeaked happily while he balanced his broom on one finger as usual. But my mind was on the Moonlighters Club and how to get Aldo there. After he left, I scrambled out of my cage and I picked up the newspaper clipping and tucked it inside my notebook. Then I hid my notebook behind my mirror. If I didn't, somebody mean, like Miss Brisbane, might throw it away. I was still wondering what to do with it the next day when Miss Brisbane rolled in a cart with a big machine on it. "This is an overhead projector," she told the class. "I am going to use it for some map work." And when Miss Brisbane turned on the machine, a bright light was projected onto the wall. And then she placed a paper map on the glass, and suddenly the map showed up really big on the wall. She could write on it and draw on it, and you could see everything she wrote. A machine like this could come in handy, I thought. So when Miss Brisbane turned off the machine and sent my classmates off to lunch, I thought about the machine. When AJ cleaned my cage and changed my water and bedding, I thought about the machine. I thought about it so hard, I suddenly came up with a really, really, really good plan. But it would be difficult to carry out and dangerous as well. Tip 5. If a hamster manages to escape his cage, you can sometimes lure him back in with a trail of sunflower seeds. Guide to the Care and Feeding of Hamsters, Dr. Harvey H. Hammer. I hope you enjoy the rest of Chapter 5, and I hope you're looking forward to the beginning of Chapter 6.